A few Fridays ago, we all woke up to something I don't think any of us were really expecting. Spice and Wolf is actually getting a new anime project of some sort. And let me tell you, when I woke up and saw that, I genuinely thought I was still dreaming. Because I saw it right when I woke up, and I, like many others, was stunned. Spice and Wolf, as I've said before, is the sort of show that was sort of like the poster child of things that need more content, need new seasons, but seemed almost impossible to ever get one. It just did not seem likely. It's been so long, the source material's done, all these potential reasons why it never happened, and now it's happening. And it's still, even about 3 weeks later, difficult to accept that it's really happening. And like many others, my first reaction to hearing that news was just instant joy and delight. And it felt like a dream we'd all been waiting for so long finally came true. And while I haven't been waiting the full 13 years for this, because I didn't watch Spice and Wolf when it was airing, I did watch it in 2014. So I've still been waiting 8 years for this, and it felt so good to finally know that more is coming. But there are some caveats to this that I want to discuss here. I'd like to go over what we know about this, what my potential concerns are, and some general odds and ends concerning this. And I'll start off by saying we don't actually know much of anything about what this is, beyond, hey, more Spice and Wolf. And that's basically it. We don't know what format this is going to be, if it's going to be like a TV season or a movie or what. We don't know when this is coming out. We don't have any sort of date or year, so this could still be many years in the future. It's not that rare for something to get announced and then for it to take years and years for it to actually get released. Look at something like the 4th season of Full Metal Panic that took like 2.5 years after it got announced to come out, or Steins Gate Zero, which took like 3 years. So this may still be a ways off, but we just don't know anything right now. I want to emphasize that specifically because you may, if you're looking around on forums and Twitter, you might see people claiming that they know what this is. They don't. None of us do. We don't know what format this is going to be. We don't know if this is going to be a sequel or a reboot. And when that thought popped into my head, I started to become concerned. Now, why is that? Because I want to be over the moon about this. I want to just be blindly in love with the fact that we're getting more Spice and Wolf, but part of me is really worried because I do not want this to be a reboot. I specifically want season 3 and hopefully beyond that, which is obviously what I think most people would have thought we'd get. And again, we don't know what this is, but a lot of people seem to just be kind of assuming that it's going to be a reboot. And I don't know why, beyond, I guess, just people thinking it's been a while, so they might want to reboot it. But again, we don't know. There's nothing to confirm that one way or the other. The only thing I've sort of seen, and this actually doesn't point in the reboot direction, but take it with a huge grain of salt. There was someone on Twitter when the announcement came out in Japanese saying that they were working on the project in some way and were happy to finally discuss it. And it suggests, based on what this person said, that it's actually a 3rd season and not a reboot. But again, it's some guy on Twitter. I don't know if he actually works on it. Maybe, maybe not. But you got to take stuff like that with a grain of salt. You can't just believe that because there's some guy talking in Japanese on Twitter relating to Spice and Wolf. But we don't know. We don't know if it's a 3rd season. We don't know if it's a reboot. But because so many people are kind of just acting like it's a reboot, it makes me worried. Now, why? Why should I not want it to be a reboot? There are a few reasons. One, I don't want the existing seasons of Spice and Wolf to kind of be negated, so to speak. Spice and Wolf is, if you don't know, in my top 10 anime. I adore it. And I don't really want those seasons to kind of get, like, I don't want them to have their purpose removed if they just get readapted. Now, in the past, when shows have gotten rebooted, this has always kind of been a concern, but usually there's at least, when I think of things like Fruits Basket, or especially something like Fullmetal Alchemist, right? Like, there's differences in the original adaptation to still potentially make them worth watching, especially in the case of Fullmetal Alchemist, because it just handles characters differently, goes in a different direction. It's its own show and fully worth watching in its own right. But even with something like the original Fruits Basket, it is very tonally different. It does change a couple things. If they rebooted Spice and Wolf, I don't know for most people what the incentive to watch the original seasons would be, other than, I guess, like a different art style. But other than that, why? And that leads me into my second point. What really would be the reason to reboot it? Like, what would you really be changing other than having a more modern animation style to it? Which, even then, it's not like the original Spice and Wolf's animation style is dated. It's not that old. It's not like it's, you know, the difference between hand-drawn and digital. It's only from 2008, 2009. So what are you gaining? Like, when you reboot a show that maybe came out years and years ago and had a lot of filler and, you know, had a lot of things you could trim out, it's a bit of a different story because you can alter what came before significantly in a reboot. Or if the original really changed a lot and really went off in its own direction, it's more justifiable to potentially reboot it because you can't just pick up where the original left off. So, like, look at Fruits Basket, right? You really couldn't just pick up where the 2001 series left off when they ultimately made the decision to reboot it. Like, you couldn't have just done a second season because, one, the original Fruits Basket is just so tonally different from the reboot and the manga. The reboot takes itself much more seriously. It has much more drama and also, on the other end, heartwarming aspects to it that the original didn't, because the original leaned way more into the comedy. And it kind of devolved into this, like, meet a Zodiac member every week and hijinks ensue, and that's kind of what the show was. So tonally, it feels so different from the reboot, but also the original Fruits Basket, especially as it was ending, added in a number of plot points and revelations that either weren't in the original story or didn't get revealed until much later. So there were a number of things impeding the idea of just doing another season, right? It made much more sense in the case of Fruits Basket to actually do a reboot, because it would have been difficult to just pick up where the original series left off. I don't see that being the case with Spice and Wolf. As far as I know, and granted, I'm not an expert on the original light novels, but the only major difference between the content that's adapted in the anime and the original content in the light novels is the inclusion of the character Chloe, who just replaces a character from the light novels, and that's kind of it. And Chloe, from what I understand, the way she's handled actually fixes a minor plot hole in the light novels. So, like, let's say, for example, they were going to do, like, a super accurate, like, full-on reboot, which we don't even know if it did get rebooted, if it would be a full adaptation. That's also just an assumption, because when Fruits Basket got rebooted, we were told from the get-go, yeah, this is going to adapt everything. Even if this is a reboot, we don't know how long it's going to go. Imagine they reboot Spice and Wolf and cover more or less the same stuff that the first series did, and then it ends. Wouldn't that just be lovely? So if we did get that full rebooted adaptation, what would they really be changing? they would be, I guess, taking Chloe out and putting the character from the light novels back in, which technically would be making the story worse. So what is the benefit here? From what I understand, the Spice and Wolf anime, beyond Chloe replacing that character in the light novel, is incredibly accurate, like especially in terms of the dialogue, to the source material. And beyond like skipping around a little bit, because the Spice and Wolf anime adapts volumes 1, 2, 3, 5, and I only found this out recently, a decent chunk of volume 7 as well. So other than like skipping volume 4, and I guess you could technically say 6 by that logic, what, like, it's not like it's cutting content, it's not like it's adding in filler. So what is there to be gained if you're not going to be trimming the show down in a reboot? You know, it's not like there's a massive amount of filler, like, for example, with the original Hunter x Hunter. That had a lot of filler in it that the reboot cut out. If you're not going to be cutting out filler, if you're not going to be correcting major deviations from the source material that can't be overcome, why would you reboot it? And if you're also not going to be, you know, updating the art style all that much, which granted, it's subjective and we don't know what it's going to look like, but if you're not making a significant change, why would you ever reboot it? Which is why I really, really hope this is not a reboot. I really hope we can just get to the new content, get to new stuff. I don't want to have to sit through the same stuff I've already seen, but again, with very minor differences. I don't think many people want to do that. And especially when if we get a reboot and we don't know that it's going to go all the way, or if it's spread out significantly, like, I don't want to waste time with that. And that's my third point. I don't want to see the same stuff again. I don't want to waste time with that. I want to see new content. I've been waiting 8 years. Other people have been waiting 13 years. We're definitely going to be waiting longer than that by the time this actually comes out. So, I hate just how, like, frustrated I feel over this. And again, based on nothing, based on just the thoughts and ponderings of people in various forums and Twitter and things like that. People who are rightfully wondering, what is this going to be? And I wish I didn't have to feel like this. I wish I could just be like, yes, more Spice and Wolf. And if it ends up being a third season, like if they had said that right from the get-go, or if we find that out soon, I'm going to go right back to, yes, more Spice and Wolf. But if we end up getting a reboot, I'm going to feel very awkward about this, which is not something I ever predicted or thought whenever I thought about getting more Spice and Wolf. So anyway, with that rant out of the way, let me go over a few other ideas surrounding this. So a lot of people have kind of been assuming, again, we don't know this because we don't know who is animating this necessarily. A lot of people have assumed it might be Shuka, which I have also assumed for quite a while, and that was one of the things that kind of gave me hope that we might get more Spice and Wolf eventually, the existence of Shuka. If you don't know, Shuka is a studio that formed out of former Brainspace employees, and Brainspace worked on the second season of Spice and Wolf. And primarily the reason Shuka exists is to finish old Brainspace shows that they never finished. The primary ones being Durarara, which they did finish, and Natsume's Book of Friends, which they've gotten very close to the end of the source material, which is why it's kind of like every now and then they'll do like a movie or some OVAs. I don't know when we'll get a season 7 of that, but we probably will eventually. So I always felt like they were the best option if we were ever to get more Spice and Wolf. And if they do it, given their track record, I think they probably would adapt everything. So that's a good sign. But again, we also need to keep in mind the Spice and Wolf light novels are long. There's 17 volumes, and only 4 and like a half have been adapted, right? That still leaves 12 and a half to adapt. And considering they basically did about 2 volumes per season, we're looking at like 6 more seasons of like 12-ish episodes if they do cover the rest of the material. And obviously if it were to be a reboot, then you'd have to add in the 26 episodes that already were adapted just again, so it'd be even longer. So if they just did the rest of the content, volume 4, 6, the rest of 7, and then 8 through 17, and didn't readapt what already happened, we'd still be looking at like 70 to 80 episodes. And we'd be looking at like over 100 if they redid the whole thing. So if this is a full adaptation, I imagine it will also just take a while to come out. But if Shuka is behind it, I'd feel much more comfortable in the idea that it would eventually get all adapted, which would be a good thing. But again, we don't know. We don't know what this is. We don't know when it's coming out. We don't know who's doing it. For all we know, this could be like a recap movie, which would suck. We just do not know. So if someone comes up to you and tells you they know what this is, they do not know what it is. None of us know what it is. And we don't know when we're going to get more information on this because we don't know how far along this is or when it might come out. But I don't want to end this on a negative note. I am still really, really happy that we're getting more Spice and Wolf. That's something that just seemed completely unobtainable is finally happening. But because we don't know what it is, I do unfortunately have to feel a bit concerned about it. And while yes, not wanting the original show to be negated is a very personal perspective on this, and obviously someone who hasn't seen Spice and Wolf before wouldn't care about that, but I do not think we need to readapt what's already been covered when it's been incredibly faithful. And I don't think we need to waste time going over the same content when we can just get to the new stuff. So I really hope this isn't a reboot. I hope it's season 3, and I hope we'll also have seasons like 4 through 8 as well to look forward to. So that's more or less all I want to say. If we get more information, I'll probably try to do a video updating that, but that's where we stand. Hopefully it'll be a 3rd season and not a reboot, but let me know what you think down below. If you feel differently or feel the same or have more information regarding like the skipped content, like maybe is it possible to move around volume 4? Would it have to still be skipped if they did another season? Like, is volume 4 enough of a reason to justify a reboot? From what I understand, it's not, and it could just be moved. Like, the fact that they skipped that doesn't justify going back and readapting things. Like, they could just do that later. But maybe you have a different perspective, so leave that down below if you want. And thank you for listening to me rant about something that might not even matter, in a sense. Take care, everyone. I'll see you next time.